This is a girl's bathroom. You're not a girl. Get out!
Hey there guys, Nordic Warrior here, welcome back to my video game review series. So those of you who have been following my channel will know that I recently reviewed Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone from 2001 for the PS1. Today we're going to be looking at the sequel, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, also for the PS1, released in 2002. Once again developed by Argonaut Games. So those of you who saw my review for the first game will know that it's a game that really means a lot to me on a personal level. And it induces a lot of nostalgia in me. It's a childhood favourite of mine, and it's a game that, despite its shortcomings, was quite a bit better than it was given credit for in my personal opinion. It's a game that was extremely mysterious, atmospheric, and quite well designed. Right off the bat, one of the things that you will notice about the Chamber of Secrets is that there is a certain familiarity about it. This game uses pretty much the exact same visual style, gameplay and formula as the first game, and this will help you get used to this game very quickly if you already played the first game, and I appreciate it. Just like the first game, the game starts off with a storybook narration that introduces you to the game's story. Interestingly, the artwork used in these storybook cutscenes are actually in the style of the PS2 version of Chamber of Secrets, which I will be reviewing as part of this series, so stay tuned for that. Once the introduction is over, you begin the game at the Burrow, which is the farm owned by the Weasleys. Here you get a tutorial that familiarises you with the game's overall controls and gameplay, as well as its combat and platforming mechanics. You get a handful of mini-games to take part in, which actually resemble things you have to do later in the game, such as stopping the ghoul in the attic from making such a racket, or using Wingardium Leviosa to help Mr. Weasley sort out his junk, or even helping Ginny feed her pet Puffskein. You also get to help the Weasleys de-gnome their garden. This is a pretty hilarious and somewhat addictive minigame where you have to throw gnomes at specific targets for points.
Nice one! You hit the boss part!
You do this twice in the game and it's really fun to try and beat the high score. I actually got pretty good at it at one point. During the tutorial you also get introduced to the new refined dueling system, more on that later, and even get a boss battle against Harry's true arch-nemesis.
Arthur Weasley's automatic washing machine.
Once the tutorial is over, you get a level where Harry and Ron will have to fly the Flying Ford Angular to Hogwarts while being chased by the Hogwarts Express. This is a lot of fun. You then get another boss battle, this time against the Whomping Willow. Once this is over, you are introduced to Hogwarts. What you will notice about Hogwarts this time is that several of the same areas from the first game have been reused, but have been expanded. There are a lot more areas of the castle to explore this time, including the library, the lower and upper parts of the castle, as well as many new secret areas to find and explore. It's one of those games where you're going to want to explore as much as possible in order to find as many collectibles and oddities as possible. The platforming mechanics are exactly the same as the first game. Harry can jump by simply running towards a ledge and automatically jumping to the next. Harry can also grab a hold of ledges and hang on to them. If you played the first game, then these platforming mechanics won't be a problem for you. As far as the game's combat goes, this is mostly the same too. Harry will be relying on his Flipendo knockback jinx for the majority of the game. You can simply cast Flipendo, or you can hold down the button to charge your jinx up, doing considerably more damage to enemies and moving objects further. The game has plenty of enemy variety, just like the first game, with several of the game's enemies reused from before, as well as some new ones. For example, you have enchanted suits of armour, giant snails, rats. You also have new ones such as giant flesh-eating slugs, giant spiders in the Forbidden Forest, and even bouncing bulbs. You also have Cornish pixies, freshly caught Cornish pixies I might add. Plenty of different enemies to help keep the game's combat feeling fresh throughout. In addition to the regular combat, you also have a refined dueling system. This is a feature that is used throughout the game and is even incorporated into some of the game's boss battles. More on those later. For example, in the first level, you have to duel against Fred, which introduces you to the dueling mechanics.
Hello there. Fancy a wizard duel?
A wizard duel?
Throughout the game there will be several more of these. All of them are entertaining, including a duel against Ron, a duel against Malfoy, and several others. In addition to the regular duels in the main story, you also have the unlockable Founder duels. These can be unlocked by finding a certain amount of wizard cards throughout the game. Once you have enough cards, you can take on the dueling champion of each house. This is a lot of fun to do, and Harry can become the Gryffindor dueling champion. As I mentioned before, several of the game's boss battles actually use this dueling mechanic. And in my personal opinion, it's a lot of fun. Just like in the first game, a huge chunk of the game involves Harry going about his school day and taking part in his lessons. These lessons are used to unlock certain spells. You have some new spells, although for some weird reason, some of the spells are actually the same ones he learned last year. As I mentioned earlier, you start the game with both Flipendo and Wingardium Leviosa, which makes sense since both were learned in the first game. But for some reason Harry has to relearn Incendio and Verdimillious. Incendio is different this time, with it acting the same way as Flipendo, simply being cast on enemies and obstacles that require it. Verdimillious acts the same way as before. You also learn Petrificus Totalis for petrifying enemies. However, weirdly enough, this is only used in one area of the game, to catch the Cornish pixies, and is never used or even mentioned in the game again. You also once again have a potions class where you get to learn how to brew the Wiggenweld potions. And just like the first game, you can brew one of these at specific cauldrons throughout the game, and can perform a short QuickTime event to do so. One addition to these spell learning classes is that the QuickTime events from the first game have been made a bit more challenging than before. Rather than just pressing the right buttons at the right time, you now have to time them better. Your teacher will also grade you for your efficiency. The better you do in these QuickTime events and the percentage of buttons pressed at the right time, the higher your score will be, getting you a grade.
Watch my expensive wand as it moves and press the symbols it points to. Perfection! You've earned a grade A! Congratulations!
A being the highest grade you can get, of course. This can actually be quite challenging, but not impossible. If you do happen to fail one, you can always replay it later from the common room, which actually gives you the option to replay certain areas of the game, just in case you failed a particular challenge or missed a certain collectible. This is a feature that I think the first game really should have had, and I'm glad that they added it here. Speaking of collectibles, there are quite a lot of them in this game. Just like in the first game, you can collect Bertie Bott beans scattered around the game. There are many more of them in this game than the first. Seriously, they are everywhere. They serve a couple of functions in the game. First of all, they can be used to purchase several unique rare wizard cards from Fred and George, who have 5 of them to spare.
Brilliant! You have 50 every flavour beans. Have a famous witches and wizards card.
In addition to that, they also serve another function. If you are able to obtain 600 beans, you will unlock the broom cupboard in the entrance hall that was inaccessible in the first game for some reason. And inside it is the Flipendo upgrade known as the Zap Flipendo. This was also in the first game. It's a more powerful and effective version of Flipendo that also changes its colour from blue to red. Although for some weird reason this disappears during wizard duels. I would recommend doing this before buying the wizard cards from Fred and George, because if not, you will have to collect all those beans again. There are specific challenges in the game that exist only to unlock more beans, such as a football challenge and several others. In addition to the beans, you also have famous witch and wizard cards that can be found throughout the game. Some of these are given to you by NPCs for completing certain challenges, such as breaking the high score in gnome tossing.
Fantastic. That's your all-time highest score. Well done.
Or simply excelling in certain challenges or mini-games. Others can be found hidden in discrete locations of the game, some of them in very nice and unique looking locations. Some of them have a particular challenge or obstacle that needs to be completed to reach them. Some of them will be inaccessible to you until you unlock a particular spell to reach them, such as Verdimillious. Once again, these give you an incentive to explore the game as much as possible and try to find as many of these collectibles as you can. Unlike the first game, you can actually replay these sections if you happen to miss a collectible, and this means you don't really have to worry about missing them, because you can still 100% the game using this feature. Just like in the first game, this game has plenty of level and location variety. As I mentioned before, you start the game off in the burrow and you get a long drawn out tutorial. You also get to explore the castle, and these levels are huge, and there are so many secret areas. You also get to explore the grounds and the outdoor locations of the game, and these areas are much brighter and more vibrant. You also have a level in the dungeons where you have to deal with Peeves and all his shenanigans. Again, it's a shame that Peeves was cut from the movie. And there's even a section where you get a health bar for Peeves, and if you look at the face of the Peeves health bar, it looks suspiciously like the actor that they cast to play Peeves in the movie, who was seriously pissed off when he found out at the premiere that he'd been cut. That was a real shame, because Peeves is a very funny character in my opinion, and he would have added a bit more comedy to the movie.
Peeves, give Ron back his present.
These levels are so much darker and more creepy, though not as creepy or as well designed in the first game. You also get a level in the Forbidden Forest where you have to follow the spiders. Once again, you get a level where Hagrid inappropriately takes Harry out of school, and you once again get to explore Diagon Alley.
Nice earmuffs, Potter. Did your mum make them for you? Oh, I am sorry. I forgot.
This is set during Christmas, which is pretty cool.
It doesn't look very Christmassy in here, does it?
Is this better? How can I help you?
And of course you get a finale that takes place in the Chamber of Secrets, which is awesome. Just like in the first game, the game does its best to spice up the level design and add as much variety as possible. For example, you have slide sections of the game which are quite fun, as well as several different mini-games throughout. You also have several racing sections, just like in the first game, where you have to get to class on time. This time you get a collectible for doing so.
Quite excellent. Well done, Harry. I knew you'd be the first to get to my class. I don't seem to have any signed photos on me at the moment, but have this Defense Against the Dark Arts Race Cup instead.
There's also a level during Valentine's Day where you have to run away from those creepy-ass Cupid things.
Oh, you, Harry Potter, stay there. I've got a musical message to deliver to you.
Valentine's cards. Ugh! Keep away from me!
This is almost exactly the same as the troll chase in the first game. Just like in the first game, you also have a stealth level where you use Harry's invisibility cloak to sneak past the teachers. Once again, you activate the invisibility cloak by collecting tokens. This means you remain invisible for a limited time. It doesn't make much sense, but it is what it is. It worked in the last game, so why not? There are also other stealth sections here and there where you have to sneak past trolls. These are quite creepy and intimidating. The game also has several boss battles. As I mentioned before, several of the boss battles use the wizard duel format, such as the Malfoy boss, the Gilderoy Lockhart boss as he tries to cast his memory charm on you, which defeats you in one hit. But you also have several unique bosses, such as the washing machine, the Whomping Willow, a giant snake, Aragog, Peeves, and of course, an epic final boss battle against the Basilisk, where Harry gets to use the Sword of Gryffindor to reflect the Basilisk's attacks back at him. Weirdly, in this game, the Basilisk has laser vision. Yeah, I know it's bizarre, but I like it. The boss battles this time are a bit better than the first game in my opinion, and I really enjoyed them. Just like in the first game, you can play Quidditch. In the main story, you only get one Quidditch game against Slytherin, and you basically have to chase Malfoy through the stands and beat the crap out of him to damage his broom. I mean, I thought Slytherin were the dirty ones. Harry is a savage in this game. You then have to catch the snitch while avoiding Dobby's cursed bludger as it tries to murder you. Aside from this, you choose to play Quidditch in the main menu, and the Quidditch games are practically the same as the first game, with the only difference being that you catch the snitch in a first-person view this time. You can also play against every house in different seasons and attempt to win the Quidditch Cup. It's a lot of fun like it is in the first game, if a bit simplistic. So like I said, the game has plenty of variety, and many of the same features as the first game. Once again, the game has an incredible soundtrack from Jeremy Soule, and there are even some new tracks this time, which suits the overall tone of the game perfectly. The voice acting is great for the most part, with the exception of Tom Riddle.
Evening, Rubeus. It's all over. I'm going to have to turn you in. The least Hogwarts can do is make sure the thing that killed that girl is slaughtered.
I mean, if AIDS had a voice, that would be it, but I digress. The game has a few unlockable bonus features. I already mentioned the Founder Duels that can be unlocked by finding wizard cards. In addition to these, by 100%ing the game, you can unlock a secret library. In that library you find a book that contains the game's concept art, which is pretty cool to look at. What's cool about this too is that some of these concepts are actually taken from the next generation versions of the game, such as the PS2 and Xbox versions. It's a pretty cool feature. So that pretty much sums up my overall thoughts on the Chamber of Secrets. It's a great game for the most part, and it took pretty much everything that worked about the first game, and kept what needed to be kept, adding some slight improvements and more features. It's nothing groundbreaking, and I wouldn't necessarily say that it's a better game than the first, but I'd say it's at least on par with it. I give this Chamber of Secrets a 7 out of 10. Thanks for watching guys, stay tuned for my next review where we're going to be looking at the Philosopher's Stone for the Xbox, as well as many more retrospective video game reviews. Thanks for watching and God bless.